And when you're consumed with something every day, and I'm not saying that I'm the best guide in the world, because I'm not. And I'm not the best fly angler in the world. But when you are consumed with something every day, it's amazing how fast you can grow and how fast you can learn new things. And, it all starts to fall into place. Everything clicks. You kind of have these mental breakthroughs and you're like, that makes so much sense. Why wasn't I doing that before? And the fun thing is that still happens now.
Welcome back to the podcast, episode 3. Today we've got my good friend Max Beck from Due South Outfitters on the podcast. Max is truly one of the most genuine guys that I know. One of my good friends from college. We've met freshman year up at App, and we've been friends ever since. So it's been really cool to see him grow in the fly fishing world and grow as a guide. And in fact, this year he actually just took over Due South Outfitters, and he is the new owner of the shop. So it was really fun to hear kind of the transition from him being a guide in college and how he was able to balance that with up to 17 credit hours a semester, and then now stepping into a more leadership role as the fly shop owner just out of college, and kind of what that has looked like for him. So it's a really great conversation. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. And for you all who are listening right away when this is released, it is, December 9th right now. There's still time for you to put in an order for any of our apparel that we've got, especially if you want to get it by Christmas. We recommend ordering sooner rather than later. December 17th is the absolute cutoff for making sure that we can get you your gear by Christmas, and that goes for hats and stickers, for t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and all that. We recommend ordering by this weekend at the very latest. That's what our apparel company recommended, that everyone get their order in by then. So if you're interested, you want to support, want to get some cool swag, check that out. And without further ado, let's dive into it. Episode 3, baby. We are back. We're live here with my boy Max. Cheers, my man. We got our Max is all his Christmas decorations all set up here in his house.
My wife really likes Christmas.
Yeah, dude. You got
Apparently
to, man.
Christmas starts before Thanksgiving now.
I know. I'm always hesitant with like starting Christmas music or start listening to it. I want to listen to it, but I want to hold off until Thanksgiving. I have to hold off till Thanksgiving.
She's been asking me. She's like, "Can I play Christmas music in the fly shop?" I'm like, "No,
it's not even Thanksgiving yet.
It's not even Thanksgiving yet." But we have like 3 days, so it's gonna be all the jingle bells we can handle here soon.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, dude, it's been a big year for you. You've, bought a fly shop, or you started owning Due South, and then you got married. We bought Due South in June, my then fiance, and then in September we got married. And one of my guests the other day, he goes, "You guys should have a kid." I was like, you shut your mouth. Hey, slow down there, bud.
Slow down. I'm tapped out for the year. I'm done. But it's been a huge blessing. We've been so fortunate. It's been so much fun. But yeah, it's been a crazy year. You got COVID. You got us. We graduated. We graduated in May.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of graduated, I guess. We saw our names go across the screen.
I didn't even watch it. I was guiding. Yeah. My mom was like, "So are we gonna watch your graduation?" I was like, "What day is that?" She goes, "I don't even remember what day it was." I was like, "Oh, I'm booked. I can't go." But
yeah, exactly. No, I just skipped to the end and watched Luke Combs.
Yeah.
That's it.
I didn't even watch that. Crap.
You can probably rewatch it.
Yeah.
But dude, it's kind of I'm glad we finally got to do this. We've been talking about doing this for a while.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been I think it's cool because we both kind of were like really getting into fly fishing, I feel like around the same time.
Yeah.
And at least, we kind of got into it our separate ways, but when we met up at school,
mm-hmm.
We kind of both started, I guess, getting more into the industry in a way, but kind of both in our own ways, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I guess, dude, tell me let's start back. You're from Michigan, I know.
Yep.
I'd love to hear, what it looks like for you growing up and then coming to North Carolina and then eventually, coming to App.
Right. So I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan. If you're not familiar with Grand Rapids, it's a sportsman's paradise. I grew up, all of our photo albums are with my dad holding steelhead, holding salmon, fishing for pike. One of my favorite memories, he would take me pike fishing all the time, but he would never put a hook on the lure because I threw so many in the trees.
Oh my God, that's brutal.
So I guess I was his test dummy because I would like throw the spoon into the water and, twitch it back to me, and a big pike would come up and eat it, but there's no hook there. So I could never.
God, I keep getting bites. Why can't I hook up?
And then Dad came and caught him. But anyways, all my earliest fishing memories were spent with my dad. And I guess one of my favorite memories I have from fishing with him growing up is, I think I was in 4th grade, and I get called to the principal's, or I get called down to the office, and I'm like,
Oh boy.
it's like, I didn't do anything this day. I was okay this day. I behaved. And my dad was sitting there in his coveralls, like a big Carhartt jacket and a toboggan. And he kind of gives me this look. He's like, you have a dentist appointment today. And I was like, no, I don't. But in my head, I was like, okay. And he goes, you have a dentist appointment today. So we get in the car, and he goes, yeah, you don't have a dentist appointment. We're going fishing.
Oh,
and so we did a lot of ice fishing growing up. And yeah, I'd literally spent my childhood fishing with my dad and my grandpa, whether it be pike, salmon, steelhead. I just grew up with a fishing rod in my hand. Not a fly rod, but a fishing rod nonetheless. And so fast forward a few years, the economy crashes real bad. It hit Michigan real bad. And my dad worked for Pfizer. Pfizer kind of closed his section of work there. And we moved out of Michigan, moved to Ohio for a little bit, and then to North Carolina. And when we moved to North Carolina, I think it's something that every kid goes through is, well, not because I live in North Carolina, but at some point you kind of lose your something loses its valor to you. And really, I got out of fishing for a long time. I didn't think it was fun anymore for some reason. And what really got me back into fishing, and what kind of propelled me to really get back into it, is one day my dad wanted to go bass fishing with me really bad. And instead of going bass fishing with him, I decided to stay home and play video games. And at the time, that day, I was like, yeah, I made the right decision. But then a few days later, as it sunk in, I was like, I just traded playing PlayStation for going fishing with my dad. It was like and really from there is kind of when I realized the mistake I'd made. And it might not seem huge, but for some reason it really hit me. And from then on, I really got into fishing. I started bass fishing a lot. I never really enjoyed bass fishing, which fast forward
in Greensboro.
In Greensboro,
Yeah.
Bass fishing never did it for me. The worm on a hook or
angle to dangle.
It never did it for me. And fast forward a few more years, I only applied to App State. And I only applied to App State because I wanted to go trout fishing. I didn't know why. I want to go trout fishing. It seems awesome. And I'd fly fished a few times in high school. But really the whole reason I came to App State was to go fly fishing. I had no intention of guiding. I didn't even really know guiding was a thing when I came to App. But yeah, I came to App and started fly fishing. I remember, I was kind of self-taught in a way, but then I found friends like you. We started hanging out because of college classes, and we started going fishing together, and I started getting better and better. But I remember like the first time I went fly fishing, I called my dad. I was like, dude, I caught 2 today. Like, this is awesome. I caught 2. And then, a couple months later, Dad, I caught 20 today. And then I was like, I caught 40 today. And when I came here, I was never concerned about school. School was always like
on the back burner.
And fly fishing really consumed me from basically the minute I got to App State. I think the first thing I did was I went and fished Valley Cruces Park.
Dude, so speaking of that, I think my first memory of meeting you was, I think I was with Austin, but we were fishing Valley Cruces. Like, for those of you who don't know, it's like a delayed harvest stocked stream in North Carolina. And we see you there, and you're in these like hip waders, like upstream. We're like, who's that dork up there?
Yeah,
in the hip waders.
Okay,
like the
hip
lefty.
waders are totally underrated, and southpaws are way cooler than right-handed people. So from the get-go, I was way cooler than both of you. Just gonna put that out there.
You're not wrong. We were dealing with our ego down there. Like, oh, this guy sucks. We had no idea what we were doing either.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, so like then you came to App and you started kind of figuring it out. Just was that just like you getting out, or was there someone that you kind of like was kind of helping you along the way? Or
so I started fishing a lot. I wouldn't say that I grew as a fly angler until, well, it's kind of one story leads into another. Kind of what happened is I met Patrick Sessoms through you, the previous owner of Due South, who I bought Due South from. And
I'm sure we'll get into that later.
We'll get into that later. But basically, once he hired me as a guide, that's when, like, the bug bit me. I had access to a drift boat. I was going to Tennessee 5 days a week. I would make my school schedule to where I only had class until noon, and then I would go fishing from as soon as I could pick up that drift boat, which would be about 12:30. I'd fish from 1 until 6, like 5 days a week, and that's just what I did. But I get kind of another story. I was a geology major when we moved to App.
Dude,
or
we had geology
together. And I was a geology major, and I had a meeting with my advisor, and she goes, geology is a really, really tough major. She was like, what do you like to do? I was like, well, I'm a fishing guide. I'd love to fly fish. And she goes, are you going to put geology first, or are you going to put fly fishing first? And, I probably should have been a little more like sugarcoat it and say like, oh, but geology first. I was like, yeah, I'm going to put fly fishing first. And she goes, geology isn't for you. I was like, sweet, I'll be a business major. So then I was a business major, and I graduated from App cum laude with a business management degree.
Dude, there you go.
4 years later.
Well, so how does Patrick, because this is like right when Due South was like, this was like right when they were starting out.
Yeah.
Because Patrick had reached out to me and was like, hey, like, would love to do some video work, blah, blah. And I was like super new to like getting into the video stuff.
Right.
But Austin and I like met each other, and we got talking. I think we had met you like at Valley Cruces in geology class.
Yeah, it was like a week late, a week previous.
It happened so quick. And then, because I remember like you got you were helping like put up the sign for the shop. Yeah. You, me, and Austin or whatever.
Yeah.
We were helping like getting the very first shop open. And then, but walk me through like what that like semester looked like, because I remember that was my freshman year, I think, and I think I ended up getting like really involved with the fraternity stuff like my first year of college. And so I know like we hung out, but we didn't hang out that much. Like, right. I guess going at like through freshman year, like what did it look like for you, like starting, like coming into Due South, one being new, like you weren't like some polished guide or some polished fisherman. You were like, what was it that like, I guess like just kind of what does it look like for you coming into that position?
Yeah. So I remember when Patrick texted me, I was working out at the gym at App, and he was like, "Are you going to be here this summer?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I'd like to be this, I'd love to spend a summer in Boone." He goes, "Well, I want you to be one of my guides." And, in your mind, you're like, well, a guide's got to be this professional, they got to know everything there is to know about fly fishing. And that's not true. A good guide is someone who the fishing's not going to be good every day. Sometimes a guide looks like a superhero because, I mean, you go fish the South Holston in May and the bugs are going crazy and you can catch 100 fish a day, potentially, you look like the best guide in the world. But why he hired me is he said, I don't care that, you don't know anything or you don't know much about fly fishing. He said, you can talk to people. So he hired me basically just off of personality. I'd met him like 2 times and I guess I faked it really well because I was inherently I'm a very introverted person. But I guess when I met him, for some reason, I was very extroverted that day. I wanted to, I guess, potentially impress him. And I was very extroverted. I made it seem that I could talk really well to people. And I wouldn't necessarily say that was a skill that I had in the beginning, but he took a chance on me. And I think it really helped me to come out of that cocoon a little bit because, like I said, I was very introverted, very quiet, like all through high school. I was very quiet. But I can honestly say that this job has helped me become someone I could talk to a wall now. I don't, you know what I mean? But, I think he hired me because I could talk. And I didn't know anything and he helped me learn some stuff. And, Austin Vogel, he works with us and he kind of came into this at the same time. I mean, him and I were we did everything together. We'd go fishing, every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And all we did was talk about fishing. And him and I kind of learned how to fish in Tennessee together. And I'll be honest, he was better than me in the beginning. He was better than me by far when we first started. But
dude, Austin is like a trout ninja.
Yeah, he is.
He just got something in his blood.
He is. And I think when he was a lot better than me, but I learned a lot from him. And then once I kind of caught up a little bit, then we started bouncing ideas off of each other. And that's when I think we really started to make like leaps and bounds together. And we got, we got pretty good. So it was pretty cool.
So that was what, like spring semester, right? Because the shop opened in like March.
Yes.
Was it 2017? I believe.
Yeah.
Because our freshman year. So then did you guys start guiding like that spring, or was it like not until the summer that you really were guiding?
I think Austin took his first trip in February of 2017. And then I took my first trip March or April of 2017. So about 2 months apart.
Right.
We came into it about the same time.
Yeah. And then you guys obviously spent the whole summer up here. Because I remember the thing was, because I did an internship in Charlotte. Like I worked in Charlotte that first year, after my freshman year. And I remember I came up a few times and got to fish and this and that, and like got to hang out with, all the guys like at the cabin or whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember at the end of the summer, just like you guys were like dialed. Like maybe not compared to now, but like compared to where you started, you guys had like you had it down. And I was like, oh my God, like Max just a couple months ago was like wearing hip waders at Valley Cruises Park. Yeah. Like he's like the dude like is guiding now.
Well, when I say the bug bit me, I mean like crack cocaine addiction bit me. Like I literally have slept and dreamt fly fishing since the day I got hired as a guide. I mean, that's like my whole life revolves around fly fishing.
Yeah.
You know, and when you're consumed with something every day, I'm not saying that I'm the best guide in the world, because I'm not. And I'm not the best fly angler in the world. But when you are consumed with something every day, it's amazing how fast you can grow and how fast you can learn new things. And, you know, it all starts to fall into place. Everything clicks. You know, you kind of have these mental breakthroughs and you're like, that makes so much sense. You know, why wasn't I doing that before? And the fun thing is that still happens now. Like, I guess 4 years later, it's like I'll do something one I'm like, what if
I'm an idiot.
what have I been doing for 4 years? But that's the fun thing about it. You learn something new every day. But I guess going back to it, yeah, I mean, we did nothing but guide in the morning, come home, take a nap, eat cookout, and then tie flies all night. And then, like, imagine doing that for like 4 months straight. You know, it really gets you dialed into what you're doing. So yeah, it's amazing how, like I said, I'm not the best fly angler in the world. I'm not the best guide in the world, but I think it was pretty cool how fast, like,
how quickly you progressed.
How fast, I guess, I kind of caught on to it. And I don't want that to sound like, I caught on fast. I mean, I don't know why.
I think something that is really important and like something that you guys talk about all the time is TOW.
Oh yeah.
Time on the water.
Yep.
And I think that was an example, a really good example of that was you guys basically out there every single day that summer, just figuring it out. You know, you guys were out there, like, Patrick, you know, gave you guys some knowledge, but it wasn't Patrick who was like walking you on, like, wasn't Patrick who was right there with his hand behind your back the whole time. You guys were the ones getting up there, right, trying new patterns, like, right, tying new flies, you know? And,
you know, that, I think that's part of the reason why we got to where we were, is because you never learn anything if someone holds your hand the whole time through. But they provided us with that opportunity to run with it, and it's just, you know, we had the
you guys took it.
We had the personality and I guess maybe the drive to be like, we're going to run with it. You know what I mean? So, it was pretty neat, man. Like, I think back about it and it makes me smile. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Dude, what I love, and I think it's so interesting, and I'd love to hear more kind of from what it looked like from your side, but you guys didn't have the typical college experience.
No.
You guys, like, it was because, you know, I know, like, I did the fraternity stuff, which, you know, I was super into, and, you know, looking back, it has its pros, it has its cons. You know, I kind of wish I'd maybe spent more time, like, on the fishing side of things. Right. But, you know, it is what it is, and I'm happy with everything that I did in college. Right. Maybe not everything, but but what I'm getting at is you guys took a route that I feel like is very unique, and you guys were basically full-time guides, part-time students.
Yeah.
Or what like, what is that? What is it? Maybe I just said the wrong.
So I guess we were. I mean, we're.
Isn't there something like that you have a saying?
Yeah. Full-time guides, part-time students. I mean, we would guide about 100 days a year, which might not seem like a ton to, if being a full-time guide now, if you're a full-time guide watching, 100 days a year doesn't pay the bills. But yeah, when you're pulling 17 credit hours and you're writing papers and taking tests and you're guiding 100 days a year, it was a pretty hectic time.
Like, what does your schedule look like being a guide for you being a guide in college?
I mean, we would wake up at 6, we'd go fishing, we'd work all day, we'd come home and we would literally walk in the door, cram fast food down our throat and sit at a computer until midnight and then do it all again. And it was good for us because we learned time management skills really well, because when you have a day off, you can't, you got to take advantage of it and get some stuff done. But it was brutal, really. It was brutal. It was the most fun thing in the world, but it was awful. Would I trade it? Never. I think one of my favorite. So if you want to know what being a guide in college is like, this is it. I was guiding a float trip over in Tennessee, and there's a really well-known guide. He's been doing it forever. He's from Charlotte. His name's Evan Dowdy. Evan, if you hear this, how's it going? But he was always amazed, like, here's these two young guys guiding and going to college. He was like, how do you do it? He would ask me every day, how do you do it? And I was like, I don't know. I just do it, Yeah. But one day we were floating down the river and Evan was fishing and I rode by you could have wakeboarded behind me. And, Evan picks his head up and he goes, where are you going? I was like, dude, I got a final tonight. He was like, I was like, I got a final. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, it's like 12:30. I got a final at 3:30. I'm going to get to the ramp about 1. That gets me back to Boone at about 2:15. I can get to App by like 2:30. And I was like, yeah, I got a final today. And he was just like blown away by it. It's like, I don't know. How do you do it? I don't know. We just did it. We finished school. I finished school because I was scared to death of my mom and dad if I didn't finish school.
Yeah.
But I loved fishing so much. I used school as my means to be fishing all the time.
Yeah.
I understood I had to, get my schoolwork done. And that's fine. But I would stack all my classes 2 days a week. Yep. I went 2 days a week for 3.5 years. I was either Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. And the days I didn't have school, if I could go fishing, like if I didn't have so much schoolwork to do, if I could go fishing, I would go.
Or you were guiding.
Or I was guiding, yeah. I mean, fishing, yeah. But yeah, guided about 100 days a year all through college.
Dude, I love the story you guys tell me about like how hilarious it would be when Travis would like come pick you up with the drift boat behind from Peacock, and then you guys would have to rush out to go get your afternoon float trip or whatever.
So I guess Travis Neal, I've known him forever. I mean,
best man
in my wedding. One of the most genuine human beings. If you ever get to meet him,
we'll get him on here one time.
Well, you should get him on here. He's a hoot, man. But I can probably no. There's no probably. Travis and I grew together in fly fishing. Like he was he came fishing with me up here in Boone. He was still living in Greensboro. We went to middle school together, high school together, and I came to App. He decided to go for a year at a community college down in Greensboro, just to kind of figure stuff out. And he came fishing with me for the first time. He came up to Boone and came fishing. And if you've met Travis, the dude could catch a trout out of a mud puddle. Like,
so true.
Seriously.
He's nasty.
It's still like, I guided with him the other day and I just shake my head. I'm like, I don't understand you. You are a freak of nature. But he came up to Boone, fished with me, and ended up transferring here. And I was elated. Like, it's like, your best friend moving up, to basically just hang out all the time.
And you guys roomed?
And we pretty much lived together for 2 years. But our schedules aligned perfect one semester. And I got done an hour and a half before he did. And that was just enough time to make it from my apartment to Valley Cruces, pick up a boat, get back to App, pick him up like as he's walking out the door, and sling a backpack in the back seat. And I'm not kidding you. We probably did that 4 days a week.
That's so awesome.
I mean, that's just what we did. And, you drive onto App State's campus and look at that guy driving through campus with a drift boat.
Everyone's getting on the bus.
Yeah.
And you guys rolling
we're like, we're going fishing. Yes. And it was so much fun. We fished so much. I mean, that's just him and I mean, probably there's, like I said, through the years, him and I have probably fished together more than I've fished with anybody else. And we've grown together so much in it. And yeah, I mean, that's all we did. We literally went fly fishing 4 days a week. Yeah. We drove to Tennessee every day. I mean, not having two nickels to rub together, but somehow we always managed to find a $20 gas bill and a $25 shuttle bill. How we afforded $45 a day, 4 days a week for 4 months, I don't know.
Dude, so for the people who don't know, tell me like give a picture of what the guide shack looked like.
Oh my, yeah.
And what that was.
So, me, Travis, and Austin lived together. Fast forward a year, Drayton moves in, who's another one of our guides, and we had this awesome log cabin just outside of Boone, and we're surrounded by these vacation rentals, and like on any given day, we've got 4 drift boats at our house. We actually got a letter from the rental company because we had a raft in the yard and drift boats, and we had 3 drift boats and a raft. And the raft was just kind of thrown into the yard because why would you use a raft if you have a drift boat? But anyways, I mean, you walk onto the porch. We had a huge front porch. We had nails hung up. We had probably, I don't know, 10 pairs of waders. I think at one point we counted, we had 80 fly rods and 20 spinning rods. So we had 100 fishing poles on the deck. And you walk inside and it's just like, like the tumbleweed, like from the Western movies.
Yep.
The tumbleweed. Yeah, that was like dubbing going down the floor. So, I mean, we lived every day. You come home and you talk about fishing. It's like, what more could you want? You come home, you sit down. How was your day? You tell fish stories. It was the most fun 2 years of my life, by far.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, literally all we did was talk about fishing, talk about how to get better at fly fishing, and tell stories. It was so much fun. It was awesome. I hated to leave.
It was called the Guide Shack, right?
We called it the Trout Palace.
The Trout Palace. Okay, never mind. That was where I went in Idaho.
Yeah.
They called it the Guide Shack. But yeah, the Trout Palace.
That's right. We called it the Trout Palace.
The Trout Palace.
There were 4 guides living in one house at one time. It was interesting.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It's probably so awesome to be around like that many fishy people and just like soaking in like all that knowledge. Like you guys are all trying to, figure it out.
And get every day. And, we're all great friends. And we, honestly, COVID was a great thing for us because we, I guess you'd take advantage of a bad situation. We did nothing but fish for a month. And
the guiding wasn't going on?
We couldn't guide, so we just went fishing for a month and tied flies for a month and bounced ideas off of each other for a month straight. And it really made us a lot better.
And that was just like a couple months ago, too.
Yeah, that was just a couple months ago. And, I mean, I really think from where we were before that to where we were after that, I mean, it was pretty cool to see how much better we got and, like, the confidence that we had built, and it was cool.
Yeah.
And that never would have happened if there weren't literally 4 guides living in one house with nothing to do but talk about fishing, so it was awesome. So much fun. It was cool.
So that was like you're saying, COVID kind of, was hitting in March, April, May or whatever. So May rolls around or I guess June was the official time, but you guys bought Due South.
Yeah.
In May, you graduated. We both graduated in May.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that like come about? And how did you make the decision to be like, you know what, like I want to do this and be able to do it?
So I was working on a final and I got a call from Patrick. He said, do you want to buy Due South? And I was like, and I was at the house and my wife, then fiance, was sitting there next to me, and I still remember he called me, and like I started tearing up because it was like a dream come true. You always, I mean, how it's awesome to be a fishing guy, but to own a fly shop and run, I guess, one of the most prestigious guide services and fly shops in the Southeast. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I thank the Lord every day for my wife, because I still remember I looked at her and I was like tearing up, and she's like, "What's wrong with you? Did you get fired?" I was like, "No, I didn't get fired." They're like, I was like, "They offered me and you Due South Outfitters." And I remember she started tearing up, and I was like, so we kind of just sat there in silence. I was like, "So are we going to do it?" And she was like, "Yeah, we're going to do it." I was like, "No way. This is awesome." So I'm so fortunate to have Macy in my life, because if I didn't have her, I wouldn't have had this opportunity. There's not many women in this world who'd be like, "Let's buy a fly shop.
Let's graduate college and start running a business together."
Start running a business, let alone like a fly shop. You know what I mean? And she just took it and ran with it, man. She's works in the shop every day, and she's awesome to have in there. People love to see, you walk in and there's a girl sitting behind the counter, and they're, you can tell at first that they're like uneasy. Like, does she know what she's talking about? Well, she's been around fly fishing guides for 3 years now. And she, I think unknowingly soaked all that up.
Yeah.
And she can talk about anything fly fishing.
Dude, she knows her stuff.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
a stick, too.
Oh, yeah. She's a stick. She can talk about anything you want to know. And you can tell as soon as she starts talking, people are amazed. They're like, "This is awesome."
Yeah.
So I'm so fortunate to have her. If I didn't have her, we wouldn't have this opportunity together. It's been really cool.
Dude, yeah, super happy for you guys. I think it's been so cool to see you kind of mature from a guide, like not just a guide, but like,
right.
You were guiding under, Patrick for Due South, and then step into this leadership role as now the owner. How has that been like for you? Like stepping into that role, and like, has there been any challenges, or like, what has it been like for you?
So I was super nervous about coming in, because you got to think all these guys that I was presumably over now. They're all my best friends. Like I went to middle school and high school with Travis. I've known Austin for 4 years. Drayton came into the picture 2 years later, but he just boom like that.
You roomed with him.
You roomed with him. It's like you've known him forever. Nick Whittick, I've known him for 5 years now. Carson, Shane, all of them. They're all like family. They're all like family to you now. And that was really one of the most terrifying things about buying the business, is we're like, are we going to lose our friends? And we're so fortunate. We have such a great group of guides. They're all so self-motivated that you don't really have to get on them. Like if you ask them to jump, they look at you and said, "I already jumped." You know what I mean? Like they've done they do things before you ask them to do things. So really and truly, I'm thankful to them, because they've made my life easy. Mm-hmm. But at the same point, what's so fun about it is I literally get to go to work with my best friends every day. Like, it's so fun floating down the river, and you're working, right? Like, you are working extremely hard. You're trying to give these people the best trip they can have, the best experience they could ever imagine. But you're floating side by side with one of your best friends, like the person who's going to come and drink beer with you after work. You know what I mean? It's like so much fun. And it's, we're so fortunate that we have such a great group of people who are so self-motivated. They're very dependable. You never have to worry about them. Really, they make my life easy. I don't know.
Yeah. Dude, well, I think one of the most unique things, and like from the get-go with Due South, especially now, is like it's such a family feel. And
yeah,
ever since like the start, it's always been such a tight-knit group. I've been to a bunch of fly shops now, fortunately, like around the country, and like there's no shop that I've run into that's been like Due South. first off, all the guides are either in college or maybe a year or two out, which I think is really impressive.
Oh yeah.
And then two, like just the tight knit group, like there's barbecues all the time. Guys are getting together. Like it's such a, like I was saying, it's such a family type of relationship between everybody, which is so unique, especially in this industry. And I think that's what makes Due South what it is.
Yeah. It's a family. It really is. Like any one of them, if any of them had a problem, like I would go help them right now. Like I'd drop this mic and go help them. And the cool thing is that they would do the same thing for me. And I don't know, I guess that's been instilled. That's always been the vibe, it's always, and I think part of it might've been because it started, Patrick and Meredith hired me and Austin, and me and Austin were best friends. And then the people they hired after that were people that we knew. So it started like, there was like the snowball effect of friends being hired. And we, it kind of became, it was that thing where we were all great friends just doing what we love to do. And yeah, we really, really strive for that family mom and pop shop type feel. There's nothing worse than walking into a store and feeling like you don't matter, right? I mean, when you walk into our store, there's always going to be someone there to greet you and say, how can I help you today? And one of the biggest things that I always stress is, we love people who know how to fly fish. That's great. But having someone come in and they ask you, like, can you help me with this? And the fact that they're comfortable enough as soon as they walk in the door to ask for help, I mean, that's like the best feeling in the world. And because that shows you that right away when they walk in the door, they are calm. They know that, they're not going to be judged. There's nothing that they need to be afraid of. They can just walk right in, ask for help, and there's always going to be someone there who's going to be able to help them and maybe explain it in a way that really helps them moving forward. So that's really always the goal, and that's always something that we try to instill is, you were in those shoes at some point. You were the person walking into the fly shop who didn't necessarily know, you had questions. So help that person, because, that's the fly fishing community is something that we'd love to see grow. It's not an elite group of people that doesn't welcome outsiders. The fly fishing community should be like, you are all welcome. Come into my corner, and that's what we really, really strive for is I don't care if you've held a fly rod for 25 years or if you've held a fly rod for 2 days. If you walk into store, or never, if you walk into the store and you want help, we are going to help you. And I think that's why, that's kind of part of like the family dynamic is you walk in and it's interesting. If you look through some of our Google reviews, that's something that repeatedly comes up. Like people will say, I walked in and so-and-so talked to me like we'd known each other for 10 years. Or this person talked to me like we'd known each other forever. And that really makes me happy. And it really makes me proud that all the people that we have working under one roof all have the same goal of helping people grow in their like fly fishing adventure.
So another thing that has been just like super impressive for me, or that I've been very impressed with over the years, is just the professionalism of Due South. And I mean, like when you guys show up for trips, it's like tucked in, like you guys are ready to go. Like it's a very professional relationship. It's not just a transaction between a client. Right. Where do you think like that comes from, and like why is that so important for you guys?
Because we're young. You show up and you have Carson, a kid who worked for us, took his first like guided trip at like 16 or something like that.
Carson's a beast.
And we're young. I think the oldest person we have is 23. So,
which is you.
No.
You're not 23 yet?
I'm 23, but I'm not the oldest.
Oh, you're right. Austin. Yeah.
Well, Nick Whittick's the oldest.
Oh, yeah.
But we're so young. So you have to make up for it somewhere, because inherently people are, because you're 23 years old, they're going to dismiss that you can be a professional guide. And that's not true, So we really, it's a well-oiled machine. You know what I mean? We want everybody to be very professional, because we have to be, because we have to show that we are professional guides. We do this for a living. And just because we're young doesn't mean that we don't know what we're talking about. You know what I mean? So I think because we are young, we couldn't get away with not being that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I think that's so important. Like you've talked about, it comes down to not just your ability to cast a fly rod or catch fish. It's like your character.
Oh, yeah.
And who you are.
Your guide trip starts from the minute that person walks through the door. You can either make their day start really well or really bad. And if they walk through that door and you shake their hand and you're smiling and you're upbeat and yeah, it's early, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, what have you. But, your job is to give them the best opportunity or the best guided trip they could ever imagine. And that starts right away. And you got to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed right away. And so yeah, that's like you said, it's not your ability to cast a fly rod. You can be the best fly angler in the world, but if you're a peckerhead, you're not going to be a good guide.
Yeah.
So
no, totally. So when you do go on a trip with somebody, what is it that you want them to really take away from that day?
What do I want them to take away from that day? Of course, I always want to catch fish, right? Every guide wants to catch fish, but being in Boone and in a tourist driven area, the amount of fish you're catching really it's not important. A lot of the people that walk through our door because they want to learn. So what I always instill in people, there's two things that happen first. I'm going to teach you, you're going to learn something, and we're going to have more fun than any other boat on this river. You're going to learn about me, I'm going to learn about you. We're going to have a great time. And when those two things are happening, that's when the fish start hitting net. The fishing is kind of like, I've got two front burners, and that's those two things. And then the fishing's the back burner, because you can catch 100 fish, and if you don't learn anything and you don't become a better angler, and you don't have, I guess you're going to have fun if you catch 100 fish, but if you're not having a genuine good time, I just caught 100 fish. So learning something, having fun, and when those two things coincide and both of those happen, that's when you really get into a groove with your clients and you start catching fish. And that's kind of how I start my day. You're going to learn, we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
And when we're going to catch fish because of those two things. So,
because you want them to take something away from the day. You don't want them to just take a couple pictures away from the day.
Right.
They I know you've talked, this is in our video, but you want them to be able to go apply what they learned that day.
Right.
The next day.
I want them to walk away thinking that they could recreate what we did that day. And sometimes I think I get a little bit ahead of myself because I talk like a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I because I have all this stuff going through my head. Mm-hmm. I want to show you this, and I want to show you this, and I want to show you how to do this. I just want to throw so much information at them because I want them to have, I want them to walk away and know what to do. But yeah, I want them to walk away knowing or feeling like they know how to fly fish. So that's important to me.
You got to kind of gauge what level they're at.
Yeah. Oh yeah. From the moment they sit down in the boat to when they hold that fly rod, what level they're at. And from there, you can really teach them, because I've had people who can cast 70 feet and reach cast and, they can cast better than I can.
Yeah.
But, you can always teach an old dog new tricks. You know, you can always give someone something to take away to make them, it might not be a game changer for them, but it's going to make them a better angler at the end of the day.
All right, guys, for all of our viewers out there in the YouTubes, I apologize. I had this GoPro here on time-lapse mode that was facing Max for that whole time, and I just realized that. So apologies, but it is what it is, and we're going to roll with it. Max and I just had to take a little pit stop, little bathroom break. The IPAs have been going through us quick, but we're just about back. All right, so I'd love to hear from you. Guiding now, what's your third season, fourth season?
4 or 5. I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's, I mean, it doesn't matter, but from your experience with guiding, like you have matured a ton from since I've met you freshman year, and like I hope most people mature through college. But,
right.
But in an exponential rate, and I'd love to hear what guiding, like how that has played an influence on your, just you as a person, and also like what is, you know, maybe the most important lesson that you've taken away, or just lessons that you've taken away from guiding.
Okay. More so than anything, guiding has taught me to like the value of hard work, because I mean, guiding is, you know, something that people say all the time is, you have the best job in the world. It's like, yes, I do. I'm very, 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 very blessed and fortunate to have the job I do. But guiding is very hard. It is mentally draining. And I think it has taught me people skills and taught me to be mentally like very tough, because you're dealing on a daily basis. You're dealing with so many factors that are out of your control. You walk in to a day, and a lot of the times you don't know what you're getting into. If you're guiding somebody new, you don't know what you're walking into. They could be Flip Pallet, or they could be Joe Schmo. You don't know. But at the end of the day, you still have, you still got to give them a good experience. And another thing that is mentally taxing as a guide is you see how good a fishery can be, and then in the blink of an eye you can see how difficult and tricky a fishery can be. And you're floating through water that a couple months ago you were catching a fish every cast out of. And I think what it really boils down to is you got to be mentally tough, and you have to realize that at the end of the day you can control like this much. You can control the morale of your boat. You can teach someone. There are people who can't be taught. I've experienced it many times, and that goes back to the mental thing, because I would say that I'm pretty successful in teaching people. Like, I feel like I can take someone who's never held a fly rod, and I feel like I can make them proficient to where they can catch some fish and have a good day. But there are people who can't be taught. The motor skills of fly fishing to some people just don't make sense. They don't understand that you have to stop when you're casting a fly rod. That rod tip has to stop high. They don't understand why that rod tip can't drop all the way into the water and then you flop it all the way forwards. They don't understand how to manage line. And that in the beginning for me was like devastating, because I was like, I want to teach people so well. I want to be able to teach everybody. And you can always help people in some way, but there are times that you can't. Some people just, it doesn't make sense. And mentally you have to understand that sometimes, it's not going to get through to them on the first time. And that can be really, really hard. And, I've had way too many drives on the way home. I've got an hour to think about what I just did, right? And you're driving home and you're like, why couldn't I teach that person? And it just, how I explain things, I guess, works for some people, and some people it doesn't. Or maybe, that motor skill of doing that just doesn't work. I don't know. But I think the most mentally taxing thing is seeing how good it can be, and then how tricky it can be. Because like in the back of your mind, you're like, dude, I caught so many fish here. Like,
you can't tell them that though.
4 months ago. No,
you can't be like, oh, you should have been here yesterday.
You should have been here yesterday.
Classic Hank Patterson.
The classic guide quote. You should have been here yesterday. That's really, really tough, because, you get to the dog days of summer, June, July, August, and it's not May. It's not April.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's May and April can be so good, or they were this past year.
Yeah.
We'll say that. Maybe historically they're not always that great, but this past year, May and April were unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then it's like someone flipped a switch. Boom. You went from catching all these fish and someone
not anymore.
They turned that light off, and it got tricky, and that's pretty mentally taxing. So I think it has really helped me to become mentally tough and understand what things I can control and what things are out of my control, which has been huge for me. It's been huge for me in, there's things that happen on a day-to-day basis that you can let yourself get really frustrated and really upset. But deep down inside, those are out of my control. So let it go. Don't let it ruin your day. So that, I guess maybe a long answer to a short question.
Like, I feel like it goes into, like you're saying, it goes into your everything, your everyday life.
Oh yeah.
Which is so cool how something like fly fishing can have such an immense impact on your personal life.
Yeah.
And, I think that's why I encourage anyone who is interested to get into it, because there's so many lessons that you can learn from the sport.
Oh, it's so peaceful.
And from just diving into something that you're passionate about.
Yep.
That you can,
I get, maybe this is kind of off script here, but I think through my years, I've seen veterans really, really, appreciate fly fishing, because Project Healing Waters is a big veterans group for they take veterans fly fishing, and it's amazing. It's such a great thing. But I've had a lot of veterans in my boat who might struggle with PTSD or something of that sort, and you can see when they first get with you, they're very tense, very uptight. And as soon as they get out on the water and that line hits the water and that float goes down, boom, it's like everything disappears. It's like one of the coolest things. So, whatever you're struggling with, I think that solitude of it, the serenity of it, and even mentally, it keeps you mentally sharp, because you're constantly thinking, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why are they eating this fly? It's very good for the mind, because there's so much that goes into it. It's not just chucking a chicken liver under a bobber and catching a catfish. There's a lot that goes into it. So I think it's really good for people. It really is. It helps tremendously. So
yeah. And I think it'd be interesting to hear, because you have to have some days that aren't on fire. You have days where, it's the fishing is slow. Like what do you do in that situation as a guide, to keep your client engaged and to keep, how do you make the day fun? Make it, even though the fishing's slow, there's nothing you can do, what is it that you make, kind of how you make that day go?
Talk. Yeah. Just talk.
Start opening your mouth.
Start jabber, jabber, jabber. Because people love to talk, and you're going to find things that they find very appealing. So the other day, case in point, we had a slow day of fishing. The first thing that guy said when he quoted Joe Dirt. So if you guys have ever seen Joe Dirt, there's a scene when he's on the oil rig and, the oil's spewing everywhere. And he goes, I don't know what to do. I'm new. So he quoted that as soon as we got in the boat because he'd never fly fished before. Well, throughout the day, fishing would get slow and start quoting Joe Dirt.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Tommy Boy? Yeah, we've seen Tommy Boy. And then that goes into, you start talking about things they like. And they're like, have you seen this SNL skit? And it's like, yeah, I've seen that SNL skit. Have you seen this SNL skit?
Yeah,
It's just, so this, times get tough, but then you start talking about something that's interesting and you look at your watch and it's like, holy crap, it's been an hour and 45 minutes and we've done nothing but quote movies and like had the most fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. You look back, you're like, wait, it's been that long. But yeah, just start talking because everybody has an interest. Some people like video games, some people like movies. My dad loves bees. And because my dad loves bees, I've had a ton of people who love beekeeping. And now because my dad loves to keep bees, I can start.
Yeah, you got a little throwing a little bit about
throwing
bees.
These little facts in there about bees, and they're like, "Dang!"
They're like, "Oh, that's a bigger tip now."
Yeah. So, people just like to talk, man. If you find something that someone likes to talk about, I guarantee you, there's something in your repertoire that you can kind of connect to them with. So,
yes, because I feel like it's so this is such a just. Basic thing to say, but it's so true and needs to be reinforced. But the experience of it is so important, and going through the process of fly fishing and of learning anything, not trying to take shortcuts, really trying to dive deep and enjoy your day with the guide, or enjoy learning a few things. You're not going to be going out there slinging bugs as a professional your first time.
No.
Enjoy the experience, and I think that's something that you guys really strive for.
Yeah.
And offer. But going off of that, I'd love to hear on the flip side what's your most proud moment that you've had as a guide.
My most proud moment as a guide.
It could be maybe proud for yourself or proud about the day or someone breaking through or.
My most proud moment. I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with fondest memory. Maybe.
Yep.
I had a 94-year-old World War II veteran. Oh. And the good Lord looked out for him that day, and the stars aligned, and we caught 117 fish on the Watauga.
Oh, my God.
And he caught an 18-inch brown and was just tickled pink. And, I'm not a proponent of keeping trout, but he was dead set he had to take some home because his wife used to love when he took fish home to her. So, we kept a couple stockers to bring home to his wife. But this guy was 93 years old, World War II veteran. I mean, just basically he could barely hold the rod, but you could tell that back in the day he was a bad mamma jamma with a fly rod. You know what I mean?
You didn't want to mess with him.
No. And we caught 117 fish in 8 hours.
Just him
and his son.
Oh, okay, cool.
Who was 60 something. They're great guests of mine. They're fantastic. But yeah, I think that was one of those that was kind of a tickle your heartstring type moment. That was really cool. Let's see if I have another good one. I've got a few bad ones.
Dude, I'd also would love to hear if the craziest story that you have, or maybe something that just went completely wrong, when you were guiding.
You're dealing with the general public, so you're always going to deal with people who have exceedingly high expectations. But more so than anything, it's gear failure. It's like you've
broken a few rods over the years.
Yeah, I'm averaging like 8 rods a year right now that I break. I have a whole wicker basket of broken fly rods over there. But trailer bearings going bad, driving to the ramp and looking in your rear view mirror and your tires going like this, and you're like, is that my car shaking because it's old, or is that the boat trailer? Turns out it was the boat trailer, and it was literally falling off. I had the radiator blow up in my car and shatter into multiple pieces. I had to get rescued by my fiance or my wife. Now she's my wife. A lot of this happened when she was my fiance. We've only been married for 2 months, so it's been pretty low key. But had to be saved by it took the cake. Austin Vogel and I got stranded under Hunter Bridge in East Tennessee, and we were his starter. I don't know. I'm not a car guy. I don't know if you can tell that from looking at me. Not a car guy. Something broke, and
his old 4Runner.
And his old 4Runner, and we were stranded under Hunter Bridge in East Tennessee for 2 hours, and stripper, hooker, don't know what she was, came down, drug dealer, and she started talking to us, and it was like immediately me and Austin were like, ugh. Like, we should not be here. Yeah. This is like, don't be here after dark type deal. That was probably the craziest night, because him and I literally sat like 2 feet apart in a raft on the bank waiting for someone to come rescue us from Boone.
Well, dude, I think I was there that day, because what happened, it was like there was something with, like, I can't remember exactly what happened, but we had to go back to Boone. And you guys stayed there because of like the trailer, or
no. His car was broke down.
Oh, his car. That's right.
So you guys brought his or I think it was with Patrick Clay and you. Y'all brought Patrick's boat back to Boone, and then Patrick had to come all the way back to Tennessee, pick us up, and then go all the way back to Boone.
Yeah.
So we were like, it was 10 o'clock at night, sitting there. I'm talking to my mom. I'm like, yeah, I'm stranded. And she is like, my dad is freaking out. Like, my mom is oh, well, you'll be okay. Don't worry about it. You're fine. And my dad's in the background like, be careful, blah, 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 blah. And we were stuck there, and this car comes down, like down the boat ramp with its lights turned off. So immediately me and Austin are like, great, here we go. Why is no, if you have your lights off coming down like into a public place, you're probably not doing something good. Like, you're probably up to no good. And she pulls up, rolls down her window, and starts talking to us, and me and Austin are like, you've got the wrong group here. But I still remember Austin and I just kind of sat there and shivered for a few hours until we got in the car, and it was like the biggest sense of relief when we finally were driving away, and we're like, oh, we're safe.
Yeah, we're going to live.
We're going to live.
No crackhead's going to get us this day.
Not today. But that was probably one of the craziest moments.
That's so
I mean, funny. If you really let me sit down and think about it, I could probably come up with some more. But off the top of my head, those are definitely the ones that pop out.
For sure. So kind of shifting gears, but, going from like a guide to a, like the owner, like we were talking about earlier, what's been like maybe a big roadblock for you along the way that maybe has, or just a big challenge that you've had to overcome since owning?
Managing my time, because I love to guide. Like, inherently, I love to guide. So, in the summer, June, July, I'll do 24, 5, 6 days a month. And, I've definitely realized coming into this that I gotta take a day off. Because like mentally you get drained, physically your body hurts. You're on a boat however many miles a day, and making sure that I'm spending enough time with my wife, and, we're working together on stuff in the fly shop and making sure, in my mind, for, just mentally, because I love to guide so much, the fly shop takes a back burner. And it shouldn't be that way, because the fly shop is reaching inherently more people than my guiding is. So that's kind of been something that I've worked on is, I can't guide 30 days a month. I need to guide 20 and, make sure that I'm getting interaction with people in the fly shop too, because people love coming into the fly shop and seeing the owners. They love to see that. It's cool. And, I think that has more value really at the end of the day when you're getting to interact with people and helping people in the fly shop. So I think that's been the biggest hurdle is time management. Like, because if I could go fishing every day and sit in my boat every day, sign me up.
You'd be like, I'm good with that.
I'm good with that. But I've got to realize that, physically I need a break. Mentally, I need a break. Yeah. And I need to take some time to make sure that our fly shop, my wife does a phenomenal job. She's running that thing like a well-oiled machine, and it's great. But you always need time to bounce ideas off of each other and make sure that everything's, see things maybe from a different perspective and make sure that everything's running on the up and up. So that's been good. I'm still guiding a lot, but I like to guide, right in the early 20s instead of mid to late 20s of a month.
Yeah.
So,
because I feel like you have to shift your mindset in a way, because you go from like this routine of guiding, day to day, you're taking a new client out, this and that.
Yep.
And then now you have to look at it, kind of step back, because you're like, we've talked about this before, which is an interesting concept for any business owner. And I'm trying to work on as well, is working in your business versus on your business. And I think what you're doing now is you have to balance it, because you're working in your business as a guide, but you also have to work on your business and step back and be the owner, be the manager, and make sure things are flowing, and like, look at it from like a managerial standpoint, like how are we going to grow this year?
Yeah. Something that's become apparent to me is it's not just me. I've got Austin, I've got Travis, I've got Drayton, I've got Carson, I've got Shane, I've got Paco, I've got Nick Whittick. I've got all these different people who are guiding, so that's, I want to make sure that they have enough work. And I guess that kind of working in your business, I want to make like kind of something that I've been working on is making sure that they're getting fed too. It's all good and well that, Max is guiding this many days a week or this many days a year, but at the end of the day, I've got 6 other people who are needing a supply. You know what I mean? So I've got to make sure that Macy and I are doing a good job of marketing, that we're getting enough trips for every one of those people. So that's been something that we've really tried to work towards, is not only is it's not the Max and Macy show. It's the Max, Macy, Austin, Drayton, Travis, Carson, Whittick, Shane, Paco show. Yeah. You know what I mean? Totally. It's like, it ain't just me. We're genuinely concerned and wanting to make sure that everybody's having plenty of work, everybody's happy, and everybody has something to be proud of in their work environment.
Yeah. Dude, I find it so unique that the fly shop, like you guys, the guides at Due South are all so young.
Yeah.
That blows my mind. And I think, do you guys get people who like are hesitant or like question you guys because of like your age?
Yeah.
And like, how do you deal with that?
The way I deal with it, maybe it's not the best thing in the world, but if you get on a boat with an old, not all older people are this way. A lot more than likely older folks who are getting into fly fishing are very receptive, but sometimes you get people who you can tell don't believe you of what you're saying. And, maybe it's, like I said, maybe it's not the best thing, but I tend to put them in their place right away. Like if they're doing something wrong, I'll be like, that's wrong. And I'll show them But I guess that kind of goes hand in hand. I'll tell them that it's wrong, but I'll show them how to do it right. And I guess maybe show them what the end result looks like and how the end result that I'm trying to get them to get is better than what they're getting. So that's kind of been something.
I guess maybe a challenge for you.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely get people who don't believe you because you're young. But someone who's been fly fishing for 25 years, if they fly fish for 6 to 8 days a year for 25 years, we're doing that in half a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we know everything. We don't know everything. But someone who says they've been fly fishing for forever, you know, and you can tell you really got to nip it in the bud, because if they're not going to listen to you, you're going to have a horrible day. And, you know, you kind of got to nip that in the bud and express to them and show them that you really do know what you're talking about. And whether that's through showing them, you know, what you're looking for in their cast and their mend and their hook set and everything like that, that's kind of part of it. So
I think it's also that it's kind of that concept of show, not tell. Like show,
Yes.
don't tell. And it's like, you know, you guys aren't out here like, yo, like we know exactly what we're doing. Like we're young, but like we'll get
Right.
you on fish. Like it's like, no, listen to what I'm saying, do it. We're going to show you that this works.
right. Yeah, that's definitely true.
Because it's the same. Sorry, go ahead.
I guess maybe I think something that we really like, not everybody, a fly cast is like a golf swing. Not everybody swings the club the way Phil Mickelson does. Bryson DeChambeau does not swing a golf club like Phil Mickelson does.
Yeah.
You know? So I think what's made us become better guides and help people is that we watch people, and not everybody's going to cast perfect. Like not everybody's going to have the same stroke. So you've got to be able to watch and critique people and help them with the stroke they have, because inherently the stroke you have is the one you're probably going to stay with. You know what I mean? Like if you're a sidearm caster, it's going to be really awkward for you to start casting straight overhead. So start, you know, how can you help someone cast better sidearm? Well, casting the fly rod's a lot like a baseball swing. Baseball swings are, I don't know if any of you are baseball players. Gary Sheffield had one of the most eccentric swings in baseball. His bat would go back and forth really fast. And if you really study baseball players, they all have this crazy thing of how they start, but they all come to a point where their bat is here, and then they go forwards. It's the same thing as a fly rod. You can bring it up high, you can bring it 45, you can bring it straight sidearm. But the biggest thing is that rod tip doesn't cross behind your body. So if you have somebody who's a sidearm caster, that's fine. You can make a sidearm caster really good if you just explain to them that, hey, your rod tip is coming all the way behind your body. If you stop that rod tip abrupt and let that line lay behind you and punch forward, you're going to have a fantastic sidearm cast. Mm-hmm. Same thing as over the top. If you stop that fly rod straight up and let that line lay behind you and then punch it forward downhill, you're going to have a great downhill cast. So that's, you know, there's working with people and seeing the how everybody's a little bit different. You can, you know, as a young person, you're gonna be questioned. You're never gonna know as much as they do, but you can always teach them something new that's gonna make them a believer. That you kind of know what you're talking about.
I think it's, you know, like we were saying, people think like, oh, or people say, you know, this is the best job in the world, and they might think like, oh, you guys have it easy, but you have to deal with someone new every single day. And so you're you're not reinventing the wheel in terms of how you're going about your trip, but you have to like deal with a new person every single day. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you learn so much about fly fishing
Oh, yeah.
through that. Like just little things, really anything about the sport, like through that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you see everything. And you learn how to fix things, but you also learn new ways to do things because you're gonna get a guy in the boat who you can learn from at some point. You know, we've all had them. You know, there's always gonna be a guy who's better than you who you can take something away from. And inherently, it's the same gig. You show up, you go fishing, you know, but you learn so much from people. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. And it's really fun when you get someone in the boat who's kind of a mastermind and they show you something new and you're like, whoa, game changer.
One more to the guide quiver.
Yeah, one more. I'm going to take that and save
Stuff it in my back pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. All right. So, like we were just saying, you get to deal with lots of different anglers every single day.
Yeah.
The best of the anglers and the worst of
Yep.
anglers. So I would love to hear, especially from beginner anglers, what do you think is like one of maybe the biggest mistakes or like shortcomings or basically one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of beginners make?
Depth and weight. Your depth is the most important thing. Your weight is the most important thing. If, we fish a lot of heavy flies, and the reason we do that is because we like to get down in the fish's face immediately. So really focus. If you're fishing a 10-foot deep hole, don't fish 2 feet deep. Fish just about 10 feet deep.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're getting down into that strike zone, because inherently trout are a lazy species. They like flies to hit them in the face. So make sure that you're getting into the I call it the danger zone. Make sure you're getting right where they're going to be feeding. And, weight and depth, if they're eating on top, make sure you're throwing on top. Mm-hmm. But if, they're eating nymphs, subsurface, midges, what have you, make sure you're getting down to where those flies are going to be. Depth and weight. That was very crucial.
Yeah.
So.
And I feel like you guys use such a unique leader system too.
Yeah.
Like we touched on in the tailwater video. Like for those of you who haven't seen that, I definitely recommend if you fish anywhere, really go watch that, because Max breaks down a really effective rig in like leader system. But I'd love to hear kind of how that came about and like why you use, and maybe explain for people like what that looks like and why you use it.
Really what it came down to was making sure our flies were getting in the fish's face immediately. If you put your float right above 5 or 6x tippet, that 5 or 6x tippet is going to float, or is going to sink a whole lot faster than 8-pound test.
As it tapers down.
So basically what that was doing is giving a thin line in a heavy fly that was going to sink immediately and get down. And our trout, especially in Tennessee, are very skittish. So, we quickly realized that having thick leader line run into a fly was not the ticket. That wasn't it. They were, it wasn't doing the job. So we kind of engineered that. I wouldn't say that. We didn't engineer that, but we adapted to that straight, like 5X, 6X beneath a float with a fly to get down in a timely manner.
I mean, I think most people, and especially when I started out, you get your fresh leader, you pull it out of the pack.
Tie that fly right on the bottom.
If you're able to get it untangled or get it undone without getting it tangled, then you're winning already. But you get it and you're all set up, and you put your indicator way up on the thick line, and obviously we found that like you have that thick line that tapers and it doesn't quite sink. And I think that's a big mistake people make.
Oh, it's a huge mistake, because if you really inherently think about it, how that line's going to go through the water is really wonky, because you've got this float here you've got thick, thin, and it's going to sink like in a weird, because it's all going to sink at a different rate.
Yeah.
Because it's all different thickness. So you're going to have this really thin line way down here, and you're going to have it get thicker, and it's like a rainbow coming off of that float because it's all going to sink at a different depth.
Yeah.
And if you just think about it, that's not natural. You know what I mean? That's not good. So that's a big mistake I see a lot of people make, and it helps. Trust me, you get to the bottom so much faster.
Yeah.
If you put that float and then like straight 5x, 6x beneath it.
Yeah. So I'd say like the main rivers that you guys fish are the Watauga and the South Holston,
Mm-hmm.
two very popular tailwaters in the Southeast, and especially in Tennessee. Those fisheries get fished a lot. Like, there are a lot of boats, there are a lot of guide boats, there are a lot of people. This year in particular, there's just a ton of people fishing it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys get around fishing to pressured fish like that? It's so much pressure from people and boats. Like, how are you guys able to still go out there and succeed?
Creativity.
Never heard of it.
It's really unique if you watch boats go down a tailwater. They all float the same line. They all go through the same holes. They all fish the same holes. And really, we're all fishing just about the same bugs, pretty close. I mean, we're not all fishing the same stuff, but generally speaking, it's pretty similar. So finding, like, this year was the hardest I ever had to work to catch fish. It got to the point where I was walking my boat through rapids I would normally row through, and like I'm talking like up to here, like getting out of the boat, hucking that anchor over my shoulder, and standing in the middle of a rapid with water rushing by me and leaning backwards and holding that boat into position, and just to get people to fish a hole the size of this dinner table.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like that's how hard it got at points at times this year.
Damn.
But going smaller than other people, a lot of small bugs. Yeah, I mean, really, it got like this summer. There was so much boat traffic. The fishing was so hard. We were having to kind of branch out and find fish in different places than you were used to. Hence why I was throwing an anchor over my shoulder and walking a 500-pound drift boat through a rapid.
Like, well, what is this dude doing?
Yeah, and people looked at me that way, but then we hooked like a 20-inch rainbow in front of them one day, and they were like, I get it now. But
all right, respect.
That was like the one time, though, that it actually worked.
In front of a boat?
In front of a boat, yeah. Of course, it works great when nobody's around. But yeah, just try to get away from the mainstream. Everybody, you're gonna watch people go down the same spots, the same holes. Try to get away from that. Maybe adapt. People are gonna tend to fish the deeper water. Well, see if there's a way you can fish shallower water. Because those, especially in our area, those fish on the Watauga and South Holston, there's, what do they say, 9,000 a mile on the Watauga, 13,000 a mile on the South Holston. There's fish everywhere. So if you can get away from where everybody else is, you might have a pretty good chance of catching one because those fish haven't been tampered with yet.
Yeah. It's so much different than fishing a small stream.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have to, that's the thing, because I don't get to fish up in the South Holston and the Watauga as much as I'd like to. One, I don't have a drift boat. Two, you guys are usually busy, and so if I want to fish, it's just like it's hard to align. But also, that's just like my niche is like small stream stuff.
Right.
But I feel like there's stuff in fishing small streams and fishing big streams that you can apply to either.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It kind of works hand in hand. Which
it does.
Is so cool.
Being creative, again, the small stream stuff. Get creative with your cast, bow and arrow cast. Stop your cast high and let those flies land first to go straight into a high stick so your line doesn't drag. Be creative with how you're attacking like both bodies of water, because most people are going to do it the same uniform way. Try to get away from that.
Yeah.
And really, I think the rigging is the same. You can rig small stream stuff pretty similar to how you rig big water stuff. You just have to change depth and flies and weights and stuff a little bit.
I think people pay too much attention to flies.
Oh, yeah.
There's certain streams that, like, it's important what you're fishing.
If there is a massive hatch, your fly is excessively important.
But 80 to 90% of the time, if you have that fly deep enough and it's getting in front of the fish's face, they're going to eat it.
Yeah, they're opportunistic.
More often than not.
They're, especially the small stream fish, they're extremely opportunistic. If you present a fly well at the right depth, at the right weight, most of the time they see it as a meal. They're going to devour it. Yeah. So, that's a great point. Like, fly choice is, yes, it's important some days, but a well-presented fly at the perfect depth and weight is very important as well.
I get questions all the time. People are like, yo, I'm coming to Boone. First off, they'll be like, yo, I'm coming to Boone. Where should I fish?
Yeah.
That. And then two, they're like, what should I fish? Like, what flies are working? And it's always just like, and I'm not like, I don't get mad at people because I was definitely in that,
right.
in their shoes at one point. But I want more people to realize that, like, get your basics down. Like, your nymphs don't even need to be like, they don't even need to look like a nymph or like look like some type of bug. As long as they're buggy or they look, like these bugs, if you actually look at them under a rock or you look at them in the stream, they are not like, they don't look that detailed.
No.
And so it's just getting out of that mindset of like, it does not matter as much about the fly choice.
Right.
You really want to pay attention to, all right, I came up to a new hole. I'm fishing a dry dropper. Oh, it looks like it's deeper. I'm going to take the time to adjust my rig, make it deeper so that it's going to get down. Because if you don't, you're not going to catch a fish in that hole. Like, it's just, simply put it. It's just being lazy. Like,
yes, but really, you think about it, trout are much in the same as we are. Are you going to work really hard to eat?
No.
Are you going to eat the easiest thing? Like, you know what I mean?
Are you going to go through a drive-thru?
Right, exactly. Are you going to cook a 5-course meal, or are you going to go to cookout? You're going to go to cookout. So if you put an easy meal in front of them, they're going to eat it. So just a little pro tip here, a weightless squirmy wormy on a wild stream is game changer. You're welcome.
Dude, people hate on the squirm, but it's deadly.
Exactly. It's deadly.
It's like, it's that back pocket fly. Like, if things aren't going well, you're like,
yes,
I got this.
So, like, what looks like a squirmy floating through the river on a daily basis? I mean, there's probably a worm that gets flushed out of somebody's yard that's in the river, but I mean, that it just looks edible.
Yeah.
Right. So, and there's always going to be midges. There's, a Frenchie is the best pattern probably ever invented. It can be anything you want it to be.
Yeah.
So a Frenchie, you can always catch fish on Frenchies, squirmies, and I mean, anything that looks buggy, like you said, anything that looks buggy. My favorite wild stream fly is a Holy Grail, which is a caddis pattern.
We need Whittick in here.
Yeah, which a Holy Grail, like a stimulator to a Holy Grail, is my favorite wild stream fish. And there's not always caddis in the river system, but that Holy Grail looks amazing because it's got that hackle on it, and when that hackle gets wet, it lays down over the body of the fly.
It undulates.
And it's got air bubbles and all this crazy funky stuff, and it just looks good. It's like a dozen of Krispy Kreme donuts floating through the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd eat it.
Exactly. So I guess maybe a piece of advice, don't focus so much on the bug. Focus on where you're putting it. Yeah. I think that'll help.
Dude, you've gotten the tying down. Like, I feel like you've gotten the tying stuff pretty dialed. But
what I tie on a daily basis, I'm very good at tying.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm a super professional fly tyer. I don't tie any streamers. It's not my cup of tea. I don't do a lot of streamer fishing. It's not my thing. But if you want to tie like really small technical nymphs and like nerd out on it, yeah, I'm your guy. I love that stuff.
I feel like you've simplified it in so many ways, because especially something that I've definitely learned from you is keeping your boat, like especially with midges, keeping them thin and not tying them all the way to the back of the shank.
Right.
And it's like little things like that you guys have figured out that like make a big difference, you know, and like not trying to don't overcomplicate this sport of fly fishing.
Right.
It shouldn't be overcomplicated.
Right. Yeah. Just be kind of lazy about your fly tying. You know, if I can't tie a fly in about 2 minutes, most of the time I'm not going to guide with it, because, I mean, you think about how much time that adds up to. If you tie 2 minutes per fly and you tie a dozen of them in one size and a dozen of them in another size, you're looking at 2 hours of tying. And, I mean, that's unsustainable.
Yeah.
You can't do that every day for 9 months on end. So you really got to think, how can I simplify this to get it done in less than a minute to up to 2 minutes? Like, you know, so simple bugs are awesome. You know, you're always going to have these specialty bugs that are so cool that you're so excited to fish, right? But from a guiding standpoint, you think about it in a way of, how can I tie the simplest fly that looks the best in a timely manner? And, yeah, we've definitely worked on that really hard, because we tie a lot of flies. My wife loves that.
I bet.
There's if you come into our living room, there's feathers everywhere.
Yeah.
She hates it. But, yeah, you tie a lot of flies, but you got to simplify them a little bit too, and make sure that they're good enough to where you might not be able to catch a fish in dead slow water, but if you fish something with a little bit of current, it's going to look just good enough to where you're going to fool that guy.
One of my biggest things this year, man, I'm a perfectionist, and I'm sure a lot of people are.
Oh.
I'm sure you are as well.
No.
Oh.
No, I'm not a perfectionist.
Well, in terms of, but I think there's something to be learned from like what you're talking about.
Right.
Which is with your flies, you know, like, I think I talked about this in the last episode, but perfection is the enemy of good enough.
Yes.
And especially with creative stuff, there's a certain point when it's like you're overthinking it, all these minor changes that you're going to make, no one's going to realize except you.
Right.
And so there comes a point with the fly, it's like the fish is way dumber than you. Like that. Sometimes you're like, what's that? Where did he go to school? I need to go there.
That he's a Harvard graduate. I went to App State. I get it.
But
I get it.
I think it's like, yeah, it's just this whole concept of for me, especially with the creative stuff, has been progress over perfection.
Yes.
You know, and as long as each time, you know, you go along, each time you tie a fly,
yep.
You know, all right, I'm learning a little bit more. I'm making it a little bit better. Maybe it's not perfect,
right.
But I'm making it a little bit better. And the more you do that, you put your head down, and you do that, and then you look a year down the road, and you're like, oh my God, I'm insanely good at fly tying.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is that you're doing.
It's really funny you say that, because there's two sayings that come out of my mouth every day. One of them is celebrate small victories, and the other one is imperfection is beauty. Because
I like that.
One thing you notice with people a lot when you're guiding is they always feel like they have to have it just that much further. And it's not true. You know, when you're fishing a body of water that holds 9,000 fish a mile, there's fish everywhere. So if you get it, 6 more inches isn't life or death. So just own what you did and roll with it, because at some point it's going to work. Yeah. And celebrate small victories. You're always, that I think is a big one, because, your guests are going to struggle with something throughout the day, more than likely, whether it's the hook set, and they might set the hook on a fish and miss it, but if you watch them set the hook and they did a really good job of setting the hook, I'll tell them, hey, don't worry about it. Celebrate small victories. You set the hook really well. Just because you didn't hook that fish doesn't mean you didn't have a good hook set.
You had a good drift. And he ate the fly.
And that goes another thing that I say all the time is you did a lot of things right to make that happen. Just because you didn't set the hook and land that fish, you made a good cast, a good mend, and a good drift to that fish. So really you did 3 out of the 4 things correct. So celebrate small things that you're doing well.
Mm-hmm. Dude, I love that. Oh, so I guess for people that are looking to maybe come into a guided trip, like someone wants to go on a guided trip, maybe it's with you guys, maybe it's out west, maybe it's in Belize. Like what is something that you would like to say to somebody before they maybe go on their guided trip? Something they should know going into a guided trip.
Yep.
Yeah. Go for it.
You hired a guide for a reason. That guide more than likely knows the body of water better than most folks do. So, maybe put some things aside and really listen and focus on what they're telling you to do, because what they're telling you to do is something that they've had success with in the past. They're not coming up with, as a guide, you're not coming up with stuff randomly and just saying, do this because I think it'll work. No, everything I'm telling you to do is something that I've had success with in the past. So if you really listen to a guide and try to complete the task that they have at hand for you, more than likely you're going to be successful. As a guide, you can't control the fish. You can't make them eat. But what I'm telling you to do, or what a guide out west is telling you to do, is going to put you in the best possible situation to catch that fish. Mm-hmm. So then, we don't know everything. But like I said, what we're telling you to do is what we've had success with in the past. So it's a good start. It's the best Vegas odds you can ask for, really. Yeah. So, just listen. What you do on the East Coast is not how they do it on the West Coast. There's definitely similarities. But how I guide people and how I fish definitely isn't the same as how people guide probably in Montana or Colorado. I've never fished out there with a guide, but I can, I'm sure there's differences. So kind of put aside what you think and, learn, take it as
just have some
I think
humility.
Everybody should walk into a guided trip as a learning experience, because if you walk into it like a learning experience, you're going to walk away with something that's going to make you a better angler.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Dude, so this is kind of going back, but I would love to hear about maybe what your first guided trip looked like.
Oh my God, it was horrible. It was horrible. But if you were my first guided trip, I apologize. You got shafted.
Come back, we'll give you a free trip.
I will guide you again for free. I promise. But dude, I learned so much from that trip.
Yeah.
What
happened?
Everything was wrong. We caught fish, don't get me wrong, but we caught them in the dumbest ways that I had been catching fish, which was not a good thing.
Would you throw an egg on?
Yeah. Duh.
Let's go.
But it wasn't great. By no means. It was not a professional, well done thing. But every guide goes through that. Nobody comes into the guiding world as a professional fly angler that does everything great. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I learned so much from that. I remember going home and it's seriously, why did I do it that way? You know what I mean? But in the next trip I went out and it was so much growth in a day. Yeah, I'm sorry. If you were my first guide trip, you got shafted inherently.
So you're a guide, right?
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for a while, right?
Yeah, 3 years. I still remember that. I was like, "How long have you been doing this?" 3 years. But I mean, everybody has to have their first one.
And everyone's got to go fishing for their first time.
Everybody's got to
fishing, especially.
Yeah.
Like,
so
gotta start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere. Nobody comes in perfect. Nobody ends perfect. Mm-hmm. But everybody's got to have their first bad one. And if anybody says it wasn't bad their first go round, I don't know if I believe you.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
You get thrown into that situation and it's like a whirlwind of emotions. You don't know what's going on. You don't know how to handle people. You think everything you say is having a direct impact on what they're thinking. So it's your first one is hard.
But you're probably walking away like, that was so cool.
Oh, yeah. You're walking away like, dude, I just got paid to go fishing.
Yeah.
Or like take people fishing. You know, this was so cool. And they walked away like, we caught, I don't even know how many we caught my first trip, but they walked, I remember they were happy. And,
that's the main thing, right?
Grace, Patrick and Meredith being as gracious as they were, I came back to the fly shop and they didn't ask me how many fish they caught. They said, did your guests enjoy themselves? And I said, yes, they had a great time. And even still to this day, when I call my guys, if I call to see how their day went, my first question isn't, well, how many fish did you catch? My first question is, did you guys have a good time? So most of the time, no, they'd always come back and say, yeah, they had fun.
Yeah.
So, the first one's rough.
I love it, dude.
It's tough.
Well,
I remember not sleeping. I was like 3:30 in the morning. I was like, what time is it? 3:30? I got to be up in like 2 hours. I can't go to sleep now.
Stay up all night.
Yeah. I stayed up all night.
There you go. Dude, but I think from my experience, and you probably know this too, but guides have such a big impact on people, and they play such an important role in this industry. I still stay in touch with the first guide that I ever got, first guided trip I ever went on. My mom and I went to a guided trip in the Smokies with this guy, John Udi, who I would love to have on the podcast eventually. But we went in just the way he went about it, and like the way he approached fly fishing, and how he was so patient with me.
Yeah.
Helped me really learn a lot that day. We caught one fish. I caught one fish in the very last hole, and he went out of his way. We went 2 hours extra from the trip to make sure that I would catch a fish.
Right.
And he did that for me. We paid for half a day, and we almost went like a full day kind of trip.
Yeah.
That's why I think guides play such an important role, because he made such a big impact on my career, and now I'm able to have a career in this industry. Yep. Maybe not guiding, but doing something.
Right, but you have your own niche.
Right.
Which is so
I've got the video
Yeah.
thing and the YouTube, and I can help share my story to hopefully impact other people that may be in my shoes who are younger.
Right.
And me being like it's so cool how he, John Udi, that guide, is now making an impact not just on me, but on so many people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's why I appreciate guides, and you get to go through that on a day-to-day basis. That's so cool.
Oh yeah, man. It's so much fun. It really is, because I've guided people from the first time they've ever been fly fishing, and now they've kind of become a little more of an accomplished angler. And it's so much fun seeing someone you start the day and they can't cast off of the oar, and then by the end of the day they're throwing a 40-foot loop, and you're like,
that's sick.
Dang it, man. You have got it.
Yeah.
I'm my guy today, he was from Florida and he's never fly fished before, and he went from kind of understanding it, and then he was boom, 40-foot cast in mending, and I was
sick.
You need a fly rod to go catch redfish now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You have it. You have
take this 8-weight as a donation.
Just go, because you could be a great fly angler. And that's what's so much fun, is you fish with people throughout the year, and there's people who stand out, and I'm very honest with people. If I see that person who's unbelievable, someone who just boom understands it right away. One of my longtime guests, the dad's name is Jody, but their younger boy Ben, he was like this 12, 13-year-old idiot savant of fly fishing. Like I remember I fished with him for the first year and he was okay. And then he came back the second year and he was bombing like a 50-foot cast with a dry dropper at like 13 years old. And I was just stroking him. And I was like, yeah, if you come to Boone, you have a job. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
But the kid was so impressive. And it's so cool to see that, like how some people just, from what you taught them the first time, they digest it and dissect it, and then they put it into practice, and then it's just like, boom, they understand it. You can see the puzzle pieces lay, and then it's just, okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
Dude, that's sick. Well, dude, we have talked about a lot. This has been such a sick conversation, and we could probably talk for hours more.
Yeah.
But I would love to wrap this up with just like, I guess, hearing from you. Well, I guess I have two things, but first, what's next for Due South? What's the radar?
What's next for Due South?
Anything big, anything you guys got coming up and you're excited about?
We are very focused on maintaining. We always want to, be able to help more people, but we always want Due South to be the mom and pop shop that you can always rely on. So, always look for new stuff. We're always going to make new videos with you, stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, growth is a good thing, but unnatural growth is a bad thing. So we're just kind of, in a way, we want to grow, but we're growing organically. We are only taking the steps we're taking steps one at a time and making sure that everything, I don't want to grow to the point to where quality is compromised. And that's the biggest thing. It's a quality control thing. Mm-hmm. I want everybody that walks through the door to feel like they had a great experience, and I'm not going to grow past the point to where I'm putting people on the water in a situation that I don't feel is right. So I wouldn't look for, we're not going to be a 30 guide fly shop. It's not in our future.
Keep that circle tight.
We're going to keep our circle tight. If you want to come fishing with us, book in advance. We're a tight knit group of guides that are very focused, and we want to help you. So book in advance a little bit. We're going to have last minute openings, but we're never going to grow to the point to where everybody who always wants to go fishing can go fishing, because quality gets lost there, and that's not good.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for that. We're working on some stuff in our shop that is going to we're going to be able to reach more people from different parts of the country. A lot easier there. So if you're a fan of Due South, you're going to be able to reach out to us and connect to us in the near future a lot easier than you can now. I'm not going to give it away yet, but
yeah, I like it. I like it.
Just know that
there's stuff in the works.
There's stuff in the works, and you're going to feel like Due South is in your hometown.
That's awesome. So
that's kind of our goal.
Yeah. And then last thing, because you've spent so much time on the water, you've made such impressive growth in your fly career. What would be something that you would love to share with, maybe beginner anglers, maybe novice anglers, anyone who's listening, that maybe has just been that one thing that just really clicked for you, or that one thing that has made a huge difference on you improving? And what do you think you would like to share with somebody?
I'm going to go back to the point of celebrating small victories. You are not going to be flip pallet in a day. You know what I mean? You're just not. So if you make a really, really good cast or a really good mend, who cares? You have the rest of your life to become a great fly angler. Right where you are right now, be content with it, work on it, grow in it. Go, if you've got a fly rod and you're not near a trout stream, go cast at hula hoops. Who cares?
Fish bass ponds.
Go do something, because when you come to trout fish, it might not seem like you're improving when you're casting at a hula hoop, but pretty soon that hole is going to look like a hula hoop, and you're going to be able to put your flies right in that hole. So really, really, really focus on celebrating small victories, because you're never going to know it all. I don't know it all, and I never will. But every day that I go, I learn something new, and I celebrate something new that I learned, a new victory that I achieved with a guest. And I think that that's something that, as a beginner angler, it can get, because like I said, I was kind of self-taught. It's very frustrating in the beginning. Really don't try not to let yourself get too frustrated, because you're gonna break through, watch YouTube videos, ask your local fly shop for help. And if you're in an area with a good fly shop, you're going to have someone to help you along a little bit. Fly shops are wealths of information. Go in there, ask them some questions, and go home and practice it, and, make small steps every day, and you will be on a fast track to being a very, very good fly angler.
I love it, dude. That's perfect. If you guys want to come fish with Max or any of the guys at Due South, I highly recommend. I cannot recommend it enough. These guys have amazing character, and you guys will have an awesome, awesome day, no matter if you catch fish or not. How can people reach out to you guys?
So there's always going to be someone in our fly shop, 828-355-9109, or email Macy. She'll get right back to you. contact@duesouthoutfitters.com, and reach out to us one of those two ways. Come into the fly shop, what have you, Instagram,
YouTube.
However you can get in touch with us, and we will help you, I promise.
Awesome, dude.
So
yeah, cool. Well, if you guys are in the area and you want to come do a trip, do it, and hit these guys up. That's gonna do it for us. We really, really appreciate you guys listening or watching, whatever you're doing. And cheers, man.
Cheers.
We'll see you guys in the next one.